Achieving true mastery in any field, whether it's complex geopolitics or mastering a language, it really comes down to handling complexity with, total confidence.
It really does.
And when we're talking about elevating your English to that C2, that truly articulate level, that complexity means being able to navigate the absolute highest stakes scenarios.
Exactly. We're talking about everything from grappling with these huge life-altering career choices.
And all the emotional fallout that comes with them.
Right. All the way to dissecting the most precise, jargon-heavy financial details that dictate real-world outcomes.
It's true. I think the difference between being just fluent and being genuinely articulate, it often lies in those specific moments, the moments when the conversation demands not just correctness, but, elegance, nuance, and absolute precision.
And that's the C2 speaker, isn't it? Someone who knows how to switch between those registers effortlessly. 1 minute you're a philosopher, the next you're an accountant.
That's a great way to put it. So our mission today, then, is to give you that shortcut to articulation. We've been handed this stack of source material, and it's centered on 2 incredibly rich, high-stakes conversations.
And they really feel like 2 sides of the same coin.
They do. One is, as you said, philosophical. It's dealing with this monumental indecision, potential regret. It's deeply emotional.
And the other one is just hard, fast, and technical. It's almost drowning in specific figures and financial jargon where there's just no room for ambiguity at all.
So, by analyzing these 2 contrasting dialogues side by side, we are going to try to extract the most valuable linguistic nuggets for you.
We're focusing really intensely on how articulate native speakers deploy advanced grammar, and we're talking things like conditional inversions and also how they use that high-precision vocabulary.
Right. You have to be able to move seamlessly from a word like lament when you're talking about feelings
to a word like liquidity when you're talking about money.
That's the real challenge, isn't it? Balancing the abstract with the concrete. So by the end of this deep dive, you should have a blueprint for integrating these truly sophisticated C2 level structures and this advanced lexicon into your own speaking.
You'll be prepared for both.
For both the abstract and the technical. So let's stop theorizing about it and actually unpack this content.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's jump into that first scenario, which is all about the emotional and philosophical weight of decision-making.
Okay.
We are essentially listening in on 2 friends, Alex and Lena. And Alex is seeking counsel because they have reached this profound personal and professional crossroads.
And what's the specific dilemma?
It's a really compelling one. A fantastic, significant promotion is on the table, but, and this is the big but it comes tethered to a non-negotiable immediate relocation to the Zurich office.
Oh, wow. That is the classic high-stakes puzzle, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It pits that high-level professional ambition right up against personal contentment, your established roots, your relationships.
And what I found immediately stands out is how the language Alex uses signals the true depth of the struggle. This isn't just, this is a tough choice.
No, it's framed as an internal, all-consuming battle.
Exactly. We hear language that is specifically built for intensity, for reflecting that mental turmoil. Alex describes themselves as being at a bit of a crossroads, feeling overwrought, and my favorite, being paralyzed by indecision.
Those phrases, they just immediately tell you that the stakes are at their absolute maximum and the emotional toll is high.
It's huge.
Let's focus on that word for a second. Overwrought. It's a word that I think is often replaced by simpler terms, like stressed or anxious, but it just carries so much more weight.
It really does. To be overwrought means you're in a state of excessive nervous excitement or anxiety. It sort of suggests that you're so worked up that your reaction is almost disproportionate, maybe even slightly hysterical.
Right. It's not a word you'd use if you, say, missed your bus.
No, absolutely not. But you absolutely use it when you're facing a decision that could upend your entire life. It's a highly descriptive, very powerful adjective, and you often hear it in, more formal or even literary contexts, or like here, when someone is describing profound personal distress.
And then there's that key verb Alex used right at the start of the conversation.
Yeah.
To grapple with. Why is that so much stronger than just saying you're dealing with a problem?
Oh, it's miles stronger. The origin is fascinating. To grapple with is more powerful because it signifies a profound mental or emotional battle against a complex issue.
Like a physical struggle.
Exactly. Think of grappling in its literal physical sense, a close fight where you are locked with an opponent. When you are grappling with a decision, you are locked in this intense mental fight to understand it, to process it.
So when Alex says, I've been grappling with this new development at work for days, it's a signal.
It's a huge signal. It tells Lena and it tells us that this problem is not simple, that it requires sustained effort, and that it has consumed a significant amount of mental energy. We grapple with existential questions or moral dilemmas. We usually just deal with traffic or a difficult colleague.
That distinction alone is a fantastic takeaway for any advanced learner. And when Alex finally manages to articulate the very core of the problem, they use these two fantastic advanced expressions to pinpoint the central conflict.
Yes, that's when they identify the crux of the issue, and here's the rub.
The crux of the issue, let's break that down.
So crux literally means cross. It's the central, most essential point where things intersect in conflict. It's the part that makes the whole decision so difficult.
And I just love here's the rub. It has such a fantastic, almost slightly archaic feel to it.
It does, and it's a direct nod to Shakespeare. Hamlet famously says, "Aye, there's the rub," meaning there's the obstacle or there's the complication.
So in modern use, the rub is just a highly idiomatic way of highlighting that specific difficulty.
Precisely. In this case, it's the necessity of the immediate relocation to Zurich. It just encapsulates the tension perfectly. The promotion is great, but the rub is the upheaval required. If you want to sound educated and frankly well-read, dropping "here's the rub" into a discussion is just extremely effective.
Okay, so now you're at this crossroads, you're grappling with the rub, and you need input. The source has highlighted a really essential classic idiom that Alex used to ask for help.
And the appeal is so direct, but so profoundly human. It's, what would you do if you were in my shoes?
It's the quintessential way to ask, isn't it?
It really is. It's the most idiomatic way to ask for advice when you need someone to truly inhabit your perspective. It's an imaginative request. You're asking your counselor to shed their own biases, their own life history.
And just step directly into your specific circumstances.
Yes, taking on your baggage, your roots, your anxieties, just for a moment. It's so much more intimate and intense than just saying, "What do you think I should do?"
And as Lena starts guiding Alex through this fog of indecision, she starts focusing on instinct. She uses those great idioms to trust your gut or heed your intuition.
And this is often the final, most sophisticated piece of advice in these highly complex decisions. When you've analyzed the situation from every rational angle and the logic is just tied in knots.
Like with a pros and cons list that just comes out even.
Exactly. The advice shifts to intuition. To trust your gut is conversational, it's common, it's visceral, everyone understands that. To heed your intuition is a bit more formal, a little more elegant.
To heed, that's a great verb.
It means to pay close attention to, or even to obey. It suggests a willingness to respect that inner, non-rational compass. It's the acknowledgement that, some of these complex life decisions, they often transcend a mere spreadsheet.
This is all such excellent high-value vocabulary and idiom usage. But here's where we move into the structural elements that truly define C2 mastery. This dialogue was a masterclass in advanced conditionals. This is often the line that separates a fluent speaker from a truly articulate one because it just shows such flexibility and deep command over English syntax.
It really does.
Let's start with Alex's lament about their prior knowledge.
That is the inverted third conditional, and it is beautiful. The standard third conditional structure, the one you learn in textbooks, is used to express regret or frustration over a past situation. If I had known X, I would have done Y.
Right, the standard form.
But Alex used the inverted, more formal form. Had I known this was on the cards, I would have thought twice before even accepting this job initially.
Okay, let's slow down and unpack this inversion completely.
Yeah.
Structurally, what is happening here, and why is this such an instant marker of truly advanced, elegant English?
So the inversion involves dropping the word if entirely. You just get rid of it, and then you reverse the subject and the auxiliary verb had in that first clause.
So if I had known simply becomes had I know.
Exactly. It serves the exact same function, expressing regret over a past lack of knowledge, but it is so much more formal, elegant, and frankly efficient. It eliminates the need for that conditional marker if.
So is this always interchangeable with the standard form? And what registers, what situations should a learner reserve this for?
It's largely interchangeable in meaning Yes, but not in register. You probably wouldn't use this sitting at a bar telling a casual story to a friend.
It would sound a bit strange.
It would sound a little out of place, yeah. It signals linguistic mastery because it demonstrates command over the flexibility of English syntax. It's concise and polished. You often see it in written reports, formal letters, or, as we see here, in highly articulate spoken dialogue where the speaker is being very thoughtful and precise. It is an instant signal that you are operating at that C2 level.
Could you give us maybe 2 more examples of where a learner could use this structure right away?
Certainly. Imagine you missed a critical financial deadline. Instead of saying, if I had paid that bill on time, I wouldn't have incurred the penalty, you can say, had I paid that bill on time, I wouldn't have incurred the penalty.
Just sounds more serious.
It immediately lends weight and seriousness to the statement. Or maybe a decision at work went poorly. You could say, had we implemented the new software last month, we wouldn't be dealing with these server crashes now. It's a really powerful tool for expressing formal regret or reflection.
That is fantastic detail. But Alex didn't stop there. They also used the structure that links the past to the present, which is, I would argue, even more difficult for learners to master, the mixed conditional.
Yes. This one is so useful. Alex reproaches themselves, saying, if I had been more strategic with my career path earlier on, I wouldn't find myself in this predicament now.
See, that structure, it perfectly articulates that feeling that your current reality, this ongoing state of difficulty, is a direct consequence of a past mistake.
Or, and this is crucial, a past lack of action.
So we have the past perfect had been more strategic in the if clause. That sets up the unfulfilled hypothetical condition in the past.
Right.
And then the result clause, wouldn't find myself, is in the present conditional, describing the ongoing present reality. It's like you're linking an old cause to a fresh wound.
Precisely. That is the perfect analogy for it. This structure is just indispensable because it gives you the linguistic tool to connect cause and effect across time and to do it seamlessly. The unfulfilled past condition, the lack of strategy, directly dictates the ongoing present reality, finding yourself in this chaos.
So learners really need to recognize that this is the structure you reach for when you're discussing those chronic present-day consequences of historical decisions.
Absolutely.
Can you give us a very relatable analogy for the listener? Maybe linking academic choices to a current living situation.
Perfect example. So, say a person is currently struggling to find satisfying work. They might look back and reflect. If I hadn't dropped out of that specialized course 10 years ago, I would have the necessary credentials for this industry today.
Past action, present lack.
Exactly. The past action, dropping out, directly caused the present lack, no credentials. Or, on a lighter note, if I hadn't eaten that massive dinner last night, I wouldn't feel so lethargic right now. It is the ultimate structure for complex retrospective analysis.
And just to round out this little conditional masterclass, Lena's advice showed a very subtle, but I think critical use of modality.
That is the pragmatic genius of using might have instead of the more common would have. Lena says to Alex, if you had accepted the promotion impulsively, you might have regretted the haste.
Okay, what's the difference? If she had used would have regretted, what would that imply?
It would imply a near certain deterministic outcome. It sounds like she's guaranteeing Alex would regret it. It's a very strong statement.
And that would make the advice feel much heavier, maybe even a little judgmental?
Exactly. By using might have, she introduces this necessary degree of possibility, which makes her advice softer, more nuanced, and crucially less certain. It's a bit of an exercise in humility.
Acknowledging that you can't predict the past with certainty either.
Precisely. You're acknowledging that even in the past, outcomes are not always predetermined. This subtle shift in modal verbs, from the certainty of would to the possibility of might, is a crucial component of pragmatic sophistication. It ensures the speaker offers guidance without sounding prescriptive or, omniscient.
Now, let's pivot from the grammar of expression to the pragmatics of giving sophisticated advice. Lena didn't just tell Alex, do this. Her strategy was far more proactive and thoughtful. She moved beyond the simple pros and cons list.
Absolutely. And this is where that high-level thinking translates into high-level language. She recommends a thought experiment.
A thought experiment.
Yes, the proactive visualization of two future selves. This is a very high-level conceptual strategy for dealing with internal conflict. It's about projecting yourself 5 or 10 years into the future to gain perspective on the present urgent crisis.
So it's a method of converting a chaotic emotional choice into a structured, manageable exercise.
You've got it. It imposes order.
And central to this thought experiment is the concept of potential regret. We heard Lena specifically use that very powerful verb, lament.
And this is a hallmark of mature decision-making. We aren't just talking about regretting something you did. We're talking about anticipating which choice you will lament more in the future. Lena asks Alex directly, would you lament the missed opportunity, forever wondering what if? Or would you lament the upheaval?
So explain the difference for us. Regret versus lament. When should a C2 speaker reach for lament?
Regret is common. It's everyday sadness about a past event. You know, I regret eating that third slice of pizza.
I know that feeling well.
We all do. Lament, on the other hand, is much more formal. It's often literary, and it denotes expressing profound sorrow, grief, or deep disappointment, usually over a loss or a failure. It often carries a formal, almost elegiac tone.
So you lament the loss of an era.
Or the state of the world, or a deep personal failure. Using it here, lamenting a future possibility, it elevates the decision from just a tough choice to a matter of profound potential life loss. It shows that Alex is treating this decision with the appropriate gravity.
That distinction really does add real weight. And speaking of giving good advice, Lena employs some excellent softening language to avoid sounding prescriptive or bossy.
This is key pragmatic competence. When you're discussing sensitive, high-stakes issues, especially when offering a suggestion for an action that involves, say, challenging a powerful employer, you have to avoid direct commands.
So instead of saying, you must ask for an extension.
Right. She frames it as a collaborative suggestion. Why don't you request a small extension? It's a question, not a command. It's the most basic but effective softening structure.
What are some other sophisticated ways a learner could soften that suggestion?
Well, they could use structures that introduce the idea more tentatively. For example, it might be worth exploring the possibility of a brief extension.
Exploring the possibility. I like that.
Or using a rhetorical question. Would you be amenable to discussing a short grace period with your manager? By using verbs like explore and discuss, and adjectives like amenable, you shift the responsibility from a command to a joint consideration. The goal is always to make the advice feel collaborative.
So Alex doesn't feel judged or commanded.
Exactly.
She also uses some advanced verbs for consideration. She suggests Alex mull this over and carve out a full day. Those are great phrases.
Mull this over. It means taking time to think deeply and deliberately about something, often slowly turning the ideas over in your mind, almost like grinding grain. It's a very common, highly useful, conversational yet sophisticated synonym for think carefully about.
It suggests a longer process than just consider.
It does. And then there's carve out. Why that verb specifically? Well, it speaks to the necessity of creating focused time by sacrificing other obligations.
Because time is finite.
Right. You have to literally carve out that dedicated time from your busy schedule, prioritizing it like you're sculpting material from a block of stone. You carve out time for research, for a workout, or in this case, for existential reflection. Both verbs show an understanding that significant decisions require dedicated mental space, not just hurried attention.
And finally, Alex leaves the conversation feeling more centered, with a process to sort this out. That phrase, sort out, it's simple, but in this context, it takes on real meaning.
It really does. To sort out is fundamentally about imposing order on chaos. Alex's mind was a jumble of anxieties. The decision was a mess. So needing a process to sort it out emphasizes the required organization.
So how does sort out differ pragmatically from figure out? Because they can seem similar.
They can. Figure out usually focuses on finding the correct answer or the solution to a puzzle. You know, I figured out how the machine works. Sort out emphasizes organizing the circumstances, the thoughts, or the steps needed to reach that answer.
So it's about the process, not the outcome.
Exactly. Alex needed a method to organize the facts and feelings first, which would then lead to the solution. It's the difference between finding the solution and building the logical roadmap to get there. It's a vital, flexible phrasal verb.
That initial dialogue was just so rich. It covered the emotional spectrum of indecision, using sophisticated grammar, precise philosophical vocabulary, and key pragmatic techniques for giving advice. It covers the abstract beautifully.
It was a perfect encapsulation of how advanced speakers handle the language of the inner life.
But now we have to execute that necessary register shift.
Here we go.
We're moving from the philosophical to the quantitative. We are shifting gears entirely from the tension between ambition and contentment to the hard, precise world of personal finance. We're joining Ryan, who is seeking the financial acumen of his friend Becca.
And this shift is so crucial for you, the advanced learner, because high-level English proficiency isn't just about sounding poetic and reflective. It's about being technically precise and numerically grounded.
And the challenge here is the sheer volume of specific financial data and figures that just fly by at a natural speech pace. If you miss one number, the entire context of the problem is lost.
That is the real-world test. The source material forces you, the listener, to absorb in real time all these specific amounts, and those figures tell the entire story of Ryan's financial struggles before Becca even offers a single piece of advice.
Let's list them, because they are the anchors of this whole conversation. Ryan's high-interest credit card debt has ballooned to, what was it?
$14,800.
$14,800.
Wow. Okay, his gross annual salary is $52,000.
And here's the kicker. His total estimated monthly outflow is approximately $4,200 against a net take-home pay of only $3,600.
So just right there, that's a massive shortfall immediately. He's $600 in the red every single month.
Before he even buys a coffee. And then Becca provides her own numbers as benchmarks. She manages to save an extra $450 a month just through disciplined meal prepping alone.
Which is incredible.
And she successfully built a substantial emergency fund of $12,700. Processing those figures quickly, especially when they're combined with financial terms, that's a major barrier for even very fluent non-native speakers.
It is. And we need to reiterate a critical, subtle pronunciation point for American English speakers, which is sort of the dominant cadence in these financial discussions.
The handling of large numbers.
Yes. When you're dealing with large numbers, particularly amounts of currency, the standard is to omit the word and. So Ryan's debt is $14,800.
Not $14,800.
Exactly. His fund is $12,700. This is a subtle marker, but it's one that instantly signals whether the speaker has absorbed the native pacing and cadence of numerical speech. It stops you from sounding like you're translating directly from another language's counting conventions.
And we have several percentage figures, too. Becca allocates 15% of her salary to investments.
And Ryan's crippling credit card interest is at a massive 22% APR. And critical reminder here, you always say percent, never percents, regardless of the number. It's 15%, 22%. That's a common trip up.
Right. Now let's analyze the core phrasal verbs that drove this entire financial discussion. The source identified 4 central verbs, and they really are the pillars of everyday financial talk.
First, the basic requirement for just being solvent, to add up. Becca used it literally. I had to sit down and meticulously add up every single expense.
It's the fundamental act of calculation. You can't budget until you add up your total outgoings.
You can't start if you don't know the numbers. Next, the central strategy Becca advised for immediate action was to cut down on.
Which just means to reduce spending or consumption.
Right. Her primary advice was cutting down on non-essentials, the daily coffees, the excessive takeout. This phrasal verb is ubiquitous in any discussion about budgeting, dieting, or, reducing your environmental impact. We cut down on waste, we cut down on screen time, or in this case, spending.
Then there was the verb related to survival income, to live on.
Becca recounts her own past struggle, saying she was barely able to live on what remained after servicing my mandatory payments. This verb establishes financial viability, the amount you need just to survive.
The measure of subsistence.
Exactly. And the ultimate immediate goal for Ryan, to pay off.
Which means to liquidate a debt in its entirety, to finish the obligation. Ryan's goal is to pay off that $14,800 debt as quickly as possible. It signifies the complete end of a financial liability.
Right.
So we have these foundational, necessary phrasal verbs. But here's where the C2 element really shines. The C2 speaker doesn't just know the common phrasal verbs, they know their sophisticated formal equivalents.
And that allows them to switch registers instantly between a casual conversation and, say, a meeting with a financial advisor. This is the shortcut to sounding professional and precise in a financial context.
That's the key to articulation, an ability to switch registers seamlessly.
It is. So Becca used cut down on, but she also elevated that phrase dramatically by using curtailing expenses and telling Ryan to rein in spending.
Curtail and rein in. Those are beautiful high-value vocabulary choices.
They are. Curtail means to restrict or reduce an extent or quantity. It's similar to cut down on, but highly formal. And rein in uses that great metaphor. Think of the reins you use to control a horse. To rein in spending means to strictly control it, to guide it, to pull it back from excessive speed.
So both convey the message of restriction, but with greater professional weight and authority than the casual cut down on.
Much more. And the idea of small, unnecessary charges accumulating was also elevated beyond simply adding up.
Ah, yes. Ryan observed that those incidental charges, subscriptions, fast food, they don't just add up slowly over time.
They aggregate. Aggregate is the formal synonym for piling up or collecting into a mass. It's used specifically in statistics, economics, and finance to refer to a total sum or a mass collection of smaller parts. When your casual charges aggregate, they become a huge problem.
And the simple act of paying off debt was linked to that heavy-duty, absolutely indispensable financial term.
Amortization of the principal.
Now, that is a term every advanced learner in finance has to understand.
They do. The principal is the original amount you borrowed, separate from the interest. And amortization is the systematic process of paying off that principal debt over time with regular scheduled payments.
But why do we need that word if we have payoff? Why is amortization so much more precise?
Because payoff just means clearing the total debt. Amortization specifies the process of structured repayment, especially how each payment is broken down into principal and interest components over the life of the loan.
So it's about the mechanics of the repayment.
Exactly. When Becca talks about building net worth, she's implicitly focusing on the amortization, the reduction of the principal amount, not just making interest payments forever. If you can use payoff with your friends and amortization of the principal in a business meeting, you are demonstrating genuine mastery.
Let's pull out a few more of those high-value C2-level vocabulary items that were peppered throughout the financial conversation, starting with Ryan's overall situation.
Well, start with the situation itself. Ryan described his finances as a shambles.
Such a great word.
It's a powerful word for describing chaos, disorder, a total mess. You use it for deeply disorganized situations, whether it's a messy room or a chaotic political landscape.
And the most critical missing element in Ryan's life was cash available now. Becca termed this lack of ready cash no liquidity.
And liquidity is the immediate availability of cash or assets that can be quickly converted to cash. Ryan had zero liquidity. He had no buffer. He couldn't cover unexpected expenses without immediately accruing more high-interest debt.
So it's a superior term to just cash on hand.
Much superior, because it implies the ease of access and convertibility. A bond is highly liquid, a house is not. Ryan had zero immediate liquidity.
And the mandatory payments weren't just bills, they were servicing payments.
To service a debt is the formal term for making the required monthly interest and principal payments to keep the loan active and avoid default. You service a loan, you service a mortgage, it keeps the debt alive, but it doesn't necessarily reduce the principal very quickly.
And then we get to the interest rate itself. That 22% interest rate on the credit card. Becca correctly called it punitive.
Punitive is an extremely high-value adjective here. A punitive rate is one that is it feels like a punishment or a penalty.
It's designed to hurt.
It is. It makes it extremely difficult for the borrower to pay off the principal because so much of the monthly payment just goes straight to interest. You would only call an interest rate punitive if it was demonstrably higher than market norms and essentially designed to keep the debtor trapped.
That vocabulary alone gives the listener the tools to sound like a financial expert. But what's fascinating is that the idiom usage in this financial conversation was just as important as the precision of the technical vocabulary.
Absolutely. Ryan needs to put his financial house in order. This is an indispensable idiom for addressing systematic, ongoing problems with money management. It implies deep cleaning, structural organization, and long-term planning, not just a quick fix.
You put your house in order when you realize the underlying structure is collapsing.
That's it. And then that ubiquitous phrase that describes so much modern stress, living paycheck to paycheck.
Everyone knows this one.
If you are living paycheck to paycheck, you are spending every dollar you earn and you have zero buffer. Any unexpected expense, a flat tire, a medical bill will completely derail you and force you to use debt. It's an idiom that captures precarious financial living perfectly.
And when describing severe overspending, Becca used a powerful, dramatic metaphor.
Hemorrhaging money. A hemorrhage is an uncontrolled flow of blood. So when you are hemorrhaging money, you are losing vast amounts of money quickly and uncontrollably, often without even realizing where it's all going.
It's a very dramatic and effective image.
Very. It's reserved for situations where the loss of capital is rapid and just unsustainable.
Finally, the mental toll of this situation was described so eloquently. The financial stress is corrosive, and the situation is weighing on him.
Corrosive stress is stress that slowly destroys or damages you, like acid eating away at metal. It's not sudden trauma, it's an ongoing, degrading pressure. And saying the situation is weighing on him is such a natural, idiomatic way of saying he is experiencing a severe mental or emotional burden.
Like carrying a great physical weight.
Exactly. We all know that feeling, and this phrase externalizes that internal pressure beautifully.
Beyond the language, the conversation offered a valuable pragmatic insight that you might not expect in a deep dive like this. The crucial, real-world tactic of negotiation.
This was a highly valuable real-world nugget. Becca shared that she contacted her creditor and successfully negotiated her APR down from 24% to 17.5%. That's a massive drop.
It's huge. And that insight, that it never hurts to just ask or assert yourself, is a crucial pragmatic lesson.
It demonstrates that financial proficiency isn't just about arithmetic. It's about assertiveness, communication, and, knowing the system.
So why is that shift from 24% to 17.5% so important for the listener to grasp?
That reduction is the difference between debt freedom and debt slavery. At 24%, nearly all of Ryan's payments are just servicing the interest. He's on a treadmill. At 17.5%, a much larger proportion of his payment goes toward the amortization of the principal.
So that negotiation tactic drastically accelerates his ability to get his financial house in order.
It's a game changer. And the long-term view Becca presented shifted the entire focus from just struggling to survive to actually building for the future.
She correctly emphasized the shift toward building net worth rather than constantly being stuck servicing payments.
And a net worth is the total value of your assets minus your liabilities. It's the measure of true wealth. The goal is to maximize the former and minimize the latter. This high-level term immediately refocuses Ryan away from the immediate pain to the long-term dividend.
And for the final time in this deep dive, we see that mastery of pragmatic softening language, even when discussing a tough topic like housing.
Which is often a point of pride and sensitivity for people.
Absolutely. Ryan admits his $1,300 rent is steep for his salary. Becca doesn't attack his choice or demand he move out.
No, she uses that soft suggestion structure again. You might want to consider a roommate or a more affordable location.
What makes that construction so effective?
It employs the modal verb might, which again implies possibility rather than certainty, and it frames the suggestion as an action Ryan might want to consider rather than a non-negotiable step. It maintains politeness and respect.
It's gentle, it's firm, and it leaves the final decision and the dignity with the person receiving the advice.
And that balance is critical for any C2 speaker discussing sensitive subjects.
We've completed a fascinating journey today. We've moved seamlessly across the linguistic spectrum. We started in the philosophical depths required to contemplate potential regret and use complex conditional inversions.
Asking ourselves which potential future we would lament more.
And we transitioned flawlessly to the technical precision needed to articulate a $14,800 debt using high-level vocabulary like liquidity, punitive interest, and amortization of the principal.
And that is the real goal of C2-level articulation. It really is.
It's the ability to balance that precision in grammar and the breadth of vocabulary that allows you to address the full complexity of the human experience, both the emotional, complex decision-making and the concrete mathematical reality.
The language in both dialogues was authentic, dynamic, and profoundly reflective of real-world, high-stakes communication.
I really believe that if you are absorbing these advanced grammatical structures, the inverted third conditional, the mixed conditional, and integrating this precise vocabulary,
from grapple with to curtailing expenses,
you are truly making that leap from being merely fluent to being effective and commanding in your communication.
That's the goal.
And this brings us to our final provocative thought for you to carry forward as you integrate this knowledge. Think about both Alex's life choice and Ryan's financial chaos. In the beginning, they were both completely paralyzed.
Paralyzed by the overwhelming problem itself.
But the breakthrough in both cases wasn't finding a magical, perfect answer right away.
Right. It wasn't about the answer. Alex's mental chaos was solved by establishing a concrete, structured process. The thought experiment, visualizing future selves, requesting an extension.
And Ryan's financial shambles was solved by committing to a concrete process, the meticulous budget, identifying cuts, and formulating a deliberate payment plan that focuses on amortization.
The process. It all came down to the process.
Exactly. The ultimate tool for converting linguistic knowledge, or any kind of knowledge, into action isn't perfect foresight. It's a clear method. So the next time you face information overload, a high-stakes decision, or a paralyzing indecision, stop focusing exclusively on finding the perfect outcome.
Instead, ask yourself this question. What is the most effective methodical process I can sort out right now? Whether that process is about organizing my thoughts, structuring my budget, or deploying my most sophisticated grammar to guide my immediate next step.
That focus on process, rather than instantaneous perfection, is the final essential tool for moving forward effectively in every aspect of life.
A deep thought to end on.
It is. We highly encourage you to revisit the specific grammatical structures and vocabulary lists we covered today. Reinforcement is absolutely key to making this advanced knowledge stick.
And keep practicing the language in its most dynamic, authentic state.
We will see you next time for the next deep dive. Okay, let's jump right in. We talk a lot about getting fluent in a language, but there's a level beyond that, right? True mastery. And that's when you can handle the really complex stuff, the high-stakes conversations where just being good enough doesn't cut it.
Exactly. It's not about ordering coffee anymore. It's about navigating life-altering choices or, dissecting a financial statement where every word matters.
Where vagueness can actually cost you something. Time, money, even peace of mind.
And that is the leap, isn't it? From intermediate to truly advanced, you suddenly need the tools to talk about uncertainty, philosophy, and then pivot to super precise technical data all in the same day.
And that's exactly what this deep dive is all about. Our mission today is to give you a shortcut, a way to start integrating that really sophisticated language that you hear articulate native speakers use, that C2 level.
Right. And to do that, we've got two incredible source conversations. They couldn't be more different, but they're both so rich.
The first one is, it's deeply personal. It's a conversation between two friends, Alex and Lena, and they're talking through a huge life decision. All the hypotheticals, the what-ifs.
The grammar of regret, really. And then the second source is a total 180. It's a conversation between a guy named Ryan and a financial expert, Becca.
A hard pivot.
A very hard pivot. It's just saturated with numbers, financial terms, a completely different kind of precision.
So our promise to you is this. By the end of our session, you'll have real, practical ways to use these advanced structures, things like conditional inversions, and you'll have a whole new set of vocabulary from something emotional like lament to the very technical liquidity.
This isn't just about listening. It's about giving you the tools to be truly articulate when it really counts.
Okay, so let's get into it. Our first dialogue, the language of indecision and insight.
Right. So this first scenario, it drops us right into a high-stress personal dilemma. We meet Alex. He's just been offered this amazing promotion at work.
The dream job, basically.
The dream job. But there's a catch. A big one. It requires an immediate mandatory relocation to Zurich.
Oof, okay.
Yeah. And he's talking to his friend Lena, trying to figure it all out. And this whole conversation is just a perfect template for discussing any huge decision, buying a house, changing careers, anything like that.
And right away, the language he uses to describe how he's feeling is so specific. He says he's at a bit of a crossroads.
It's such a classic metaphor, but it's perfect. A crossroads isn't just a choice. It implies that the paths are mutually exclusive. You pick one, you lose the other. It has weight.
It's so much better than just saying, I have a big decision to make.
Oh, absolutely. And then he says he sounded overwrought on the phone. Now, why that word? Why not just stress?
That sounds more frantic, maybe?
Exactly. Overwrought implies you're worked up to an excessive degree. You're so charged up with emotion that you're almost hysterical. It signals that his rational brain has kind of checked out for a minute.
Which leads to the next thing he says, that he's paralyzed by indecision. It's not just a feeling, it's stopping him from functioning.
And that brings us to this really critical verb he uses. He says he's grappling with the choice.
Okay, let's unpack that one. To grapple with something. How is that different from, say, dealing with it?
It's all about intensity. Grappling is a physical word. It's wrestling, struggling, using all your energy to get control of something. So when you grapple with a problem, you're in a deep mental or emotional battle with it. It implies real effort and difficulty.
So he's really setting the stage here for this huge internal conflict, his professional ambition on one side.
The phenomenal opportunity, as he calls it.
Right. And on the other side, it's his personal life, his contentment, his roots, where he is now.
And he has these two fantastic phrases to pinpoint that central conflict. First, he says, but here's the rub.
I love that one.
And then a bit later, he says he's getting to the crux of the issue.
So are they interchangeable? The rub and the crux?
Mostly, but there's a subtle difference in tone. The crux of the issue is more formal, more analytical. It's the absolute central point of a problem. You'd use that in a report or a serious meeting.
Okay.
But the rub, that's a beautiful idiom. It's a bit more casual, a bit more world-weary. It refers to the specific annoying difficulty that spoils an otherwise good situation. The job is great, but the rub is the move.
So you'd use the rub with a friend like he is to signal that shared frustration.
Exactly. It's about modulating your tone for your audience. With his boss, it's the crux of the issue. With his friend, here's the rub.
That's a great distinction. Okay, so then he moves on to actually asking for advice. And he uses that classic, super idiomatic phrase, "What would you do if you were in my shoes?"
You just have to know that one, don't you? There's no translating it literally. In my shoes is just, it's the code for asking someone to see things from your perspective with all your history and feelings.
And Lena's response is so smart. She doesn't just pull out a spreadsheet with pros and cons.
No, she goes the other way. She tells him he needs to eventually trust your gut or heed your intuition.
She's acknowledging that logic can only take you so far with these huge emotional decisions.
That's right. Sophisticated advice often does that. It validates the non-rational, the instinctive part of our brain.
Okay, now let's get into the grammar, because this part of the conversation was, it was basically a C2 masterclass in talking about regret and hypotheticals.
It really was. And we have to start with the inverted third conditional. This is one of those structures that just screams high-level proficiency.
So this is when Alex is talking about wishing he knew this was coming.
Yes, he says, had I known this was on the cards, I would have thought twice before even accepting this job initially.
Okay, let's stop there and break that down. Most people would say, if I had known. So what's happening with had I known?
It's a simple but very elegant transformation. You remove the word if, and you switch the position of the subject I and the auxiliary verb had.
So if I had becomes had I.
Precisely. The meaning is identical. It expresses regret about an unreal past situation, but it does it with more economy, more formality. It sounds more polished.
Can you give us a couple of other examples, like outside of a personal problem?
Sure. In a business meeting, a CEO looking back on a bad decision might say, had we understood the market dynamics, we would have never launched that product.
Right. It sounds very authoritative.
Or a political analyst could say, had the party campaigned more aggressively in those states, the outcome would have been entirely different. It adds a layer of serious, formal analysis.
Okay, that makes total sense. It's a way to sound more formal and efficient. And then just moments later, he uses another really complex structure.
He does. He uses the mixed conditional to connect his past behavior to his current stress.
This is the one that's so high value because it builds that bridge between a past mistake and a present consequence.
It's perfect for that. He says, if I had been more strategic with my career path earlier on, I wouldn't find myself in this predicament now.
Let's pull that apart too. The first part, if I had been, that's the past.
Right, past perfect. It's an unfulfilled condition in the past. He wasn't strategic. And that's linked directly to the second part. I wouldn't find myself in this predicament now.
Which is the present.
The present conditional. So, a past inaction is creating a direct, ongoing present reality. He's stuck now because of what he didn't do then.
That's incredibly useful. It's the grammar of hindsight, really.
It absolutely is. You can use it anywhere. A student could say, if I had started studying last week, I wouldn't be so stressed out today. Or for health, if he had listened to his doctor a year ago, he wouldn't be facing surgery now. It directly connects cause and effect across time.
And the nuance doesn't stop there. Lena, when she's giving advice, she makes this very subtle choice with her modal verbs.
Yes, she does. She's talking about the risk of making a quick decision. And instead of saying, you would have regretted it, which sounds very certain, maybe a little bit judgmental.
A bit like I told you so in advance.
Exactly. She softens it. She says, if you had accepted the promotion impulsively, you might have regretted the haste.
Might have.
Yeah.
So that little change introduces possibility, not certainty.
And that's a huge deal in giving advice. She's not claiming to know the future. She's saying, this is a credible risk. This is a possible outcome to consider. It makes her advice feel more collaborative and less like a lecture. It's incredibly tactful.
So much of the C2 level is about tact, isn't it? It's not just about being correct, it's about being effective.
100%. And that brings us to the pragmatics of how she gives the advice. She totally skips the boring pros and cons list.
Right. She suggests a thought experiment. She tells him to visualize his two future selves.
This is such a mature strategy. A list is about logic. A thought experiment is about emotion. It forces him to actually feel the consequences of each choice, not just count them.
And she frames the whole thing around this idea of potential regret.
Yes. She asks him which choice he would lament more. Now, lament is a powerful word.
It's more than just regret.
Oh, much more. To lament something is to feel profound, passionate grief over it. It's a deep sorrow. She's asking him to figure out which path would leave him with that deep, aching feeling of what if. It's a much deeper question.
And when she gives practical advice, like asking for more time, she's so careful with her language.
Yeah.
She's a master of softening it.
She is. She doesn't command him. She doesn't say, you need to get an extension. She frames it as a gentle, collaborative question.
She says, why don't you request a small extension?
And that difference is everything. A command can make someone defensive. A question invites them to agree with a good idea. It feels like they're working on a strategy together.
I also noticed the verb she used to validate how serious this is. She tells him he needs to mull this over.
A great phrase. It means to think deeply, slowly, deliberately. It's not a snap judgment.
And to carve out a full day. I like that phrasal verb. Carve out.
It's perfect, isn't it? It implies you have to actively, intentionally protect that time from all your other responsibilities. You're cutting it out of a busy schedule because this decision deserves that focus.
Which brings us to the resolution, really. The phrase he uses at the end to describe his neat sense of clarity. To sort out, he says, I finally have a process to sort this out.
And that's the key distinction. When you sort out a mess, you're not just finding an answer. You're imposing order and structure on chaos. It has this overlap with figure out, but sort out really emphasizes the need for organization. He went from being paralyzed to having a clear, methodical plan.
So an incredible masterclass in that first dialogue on how to talk about big philosophical, emotional choices using really precise grammar.
It was. But now we have to prepare for a complete change of pace. We need to clear our heads because the linguistic skills required for this next part are totally different.
Okay, let's do it. We are flipping the script, leaving the world of internal conflict and diving headfirst into the hard, cold world of finance. We're moving from Alex and Lena to Ryan and Becca.
And here, the challenge isn't emotional nuance, it's technical precision. It's about numbers, specific terminology, and the high stakes of getting it wrong. Being vague about your feelings is one thing. Being vague about your debt is a catastrophe.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest hurdles for any advanced language learner is just keeping up with numbers when they're spoken at a natural pace.
It's so difficult. So let's just lay out the key figures from this conversation so we can all absorb them. Ryan's total debt is $14,800.
$14,800.
His annual salary is $52,000. But the real crisis, the heart of the problem, is his monthly cash flow. He spends $4,200 a month.
Okay.
But his take-home pay after taxes is only $3,600.
Wow. So he's going $600 deeper into debt every single month.
Every single month. And the proposed solutions also rely on hard numbers. The savings from meal prepping could be $450 a month. Becca's emergency fund, as an example, is $12,700. And the killer number, the one driving this whole crisis, is his credit card's annual percentage rate. It's 22% APR.
22%. Ouch. Okay, and there's a quick pronunciation point here that's really important for sounding natural, isn't there?
A critical one. In American English, when we say a number like $14,800, we don't say the word and. It's 14,800, not 14,800. It's a small thing, but it's a huge tell.
And the same with percentages. You never say percents. It's always singular.
Always. 15%, 22%. These are the tiny details that make technical language sound effortless and correct.
Okay, so with that foundation, let's look at the core phrasal verbs that really structured this whole financial discussion.
There were 4 that just kept coming up. The first one was to add up. Very literal. Becca said she had to meticulously add up every single expense. It's about calculation, getting the total.
Right. Then the most important one for the solution, to cut down on.
The absolute heart of her advice, reducing spending. They had to cut down on numerous non-essentials. That's the main action he has to take.
The third one was to live on. It's about subsistence.
Becca talked about a time when she was barely able to live on what remained after her bills. It's about whether your income is actually enough to survive.
And finally, the goal of the whole process, to pay off. To liquidate the debt completely. His mission is to pay off that $14,800.
Exactly, but now for the really exciting part. This is where we see the bridge from that everyday essential language to the C2 level vocabulary of a financial expert.
The C2 shortcuts, taking those phrasal verbs and elevating them.
Yes. Let's start with cut down on. Becca immediately used two fantastic, more formal alternatives. She talked about the need for curtailing expenses and said Ryan absolutely had to rein in spending.
Curtail is pretty straightforward. It means to reduce or restrict. But rein in, that's such a great metaphor.
Isn't it? A rein is what you use to control a horse that's running wild. So when you say you need to rein in spending, you're implying that the spending is out of control. It's rampant. And you need to use force and discipline to pull it back. It's so much stronger than spend less.
It paints a very clear picture. Okay, what about add up?
When she talked about all the small daily charges, she said, it's astonishing how those incidental charges aggregate.
So aggregate is the formal way to say pile up or add up over time.
Exactly. It's a term from economics and statistics. It implies accumulation, not just a simple sum.
And for the big one, pay off, she connected it to the formal financial process.
She did. She talked about the amortization of the principal.
Okay, two big words there. Let's break them down.
Principal is the original amount of the loan, the $14,800, separate from the interest. And amortization is the technical term for the process of gradually paying down that principal over time through a schedule of payments.
So if you say you're focusing on the amortization of the principal, you're signaling that you understand debt structure. You're not just paying the interest.
You sound like you know exactly what you're doing. It gives you immediate credibility.
Beyond those pairings, there was so much other high-level vocabulary. His whole financial situation was described as a shambles.
A total mess. A state of complete disorder. But the most important technical term we have to discuss is liquidity. Becca says Ryan has no liquidity.
Okay, this is a crucial concept. Let's really dig in here. What exactly is liquidity?
Liquidity is about how quickly you can get your hands on cash. An asset is liquid if you can convert it to cash quickly without losing its value. So the money in your checking account is perfectly liquid.
And something like a house or a car would be illiquid.
Very illiquid. They have value, sure, but you can't pay for groceries with a piece of your house. It takes time and effort to sell them. So a person can have assets, they can be wealthy on paper, but if they can't pay their bills this month, they have a liquidity problem. Ryan has no cash buffer.
That makes the term absolutely essential for any serious financial talk. What about the payments he's making?
Those are called servicing payments. That's the professional term. You're servicing the debt. And the debt itself, the $14,800, is called his outstanding debt.
And the word she used to describe that 22% interest rate was just perfect. She called it punitive.
It's a brilliant choice. Punitive means designed to punish. And a 22% APR feels like a punishment. It's designed to be almost impossible to escape. Using that word shows she understands the emotional and practical reality of that kind of debt. It shows her financial acumen, her sharpness and insight.
Well, let's talk about the idioms, too. The phrases you just have to know to talk about money naturally. Ryan says he needs to put his financial house in order.
It's the perfect metaphor for taking systemic control of your finances, building a stable structure. And the idiom for his current state is one we hear all the time, living paycheck to paycheck.
It just perfectly captures that feeling of having no breathing room. All your money comes in, and it immediately goes right back out.
And for the out-of-control spending, she used that powerful medical image. She's hemorrhaging money.
With the severe, uncontrolled bleeding.
Yeah.
It communicates that this is an emergency, a financial life or death situation.
It does. And finally, they acknowledge the emotional toll. The stress is corrosive, eating away at him, and the whole situation is weighing on him like a physical burden he has to carry around.
It really shows that financial talk isn't just numbers. It's deeply psychological.
Absolutely. And the advice wasn't just descriptive, it was packed with real-world tactics.
This was my favorite part. The idea that you can actually do something. And the most powerful tactic was negotiation.
Yes. Becca shared her own story of calling her credit card company and getting her APR dropped from 24% to 17.5%. That's a huge practical piece of advice.
I have to ask, how realistic is that? Especially for someone who might not be a native speaker, calling up a big bank. Does using this kind of precise language actually help you in that negotiation?
It's absolutely realistic, and the precise language is your best weapon. Think about it. If you call and sound desperate and confused, they hold all the power. But if you call and use terms like amortization, outstanding balance, and you talk about your APR, you sound like a sophisticated customer.
So they treat you differently.
They treat you completely differently. They know you understand the system, that you might be looking at other options like debt consolidation. Your sophisticated language gives you leverage. It shifts the power dynamic.
That's fascinating. And she also pushed him to think about the long-term view.
Constantly. She talked about building net worth, your assets minus your debts, instead of just getting trapped in the endless cycle of making servicing payments.
And just like Lena did in the first dialogue, Becca was so careful when suggesting a really difficult change.
She was. When she brought up the idea of him getting a roommate, which is a huge lifestyle change, she framed it so softly. She said, "You might want to consider a roommate."
It's that same collaborative, non-judgmental approach. It's amazing how the best communication techniques are universal, whether the topic is your life's purpose or your credit card debt.
There really are, and that, I think, brings us right to the synthesis. What do these two very different conversations really teach us?
We've covered so much ground. We went from the philosophical need to lament a potential future regret and using elegant conditional inversions to talk about it.
And then we jump straight to the technical precision needed to articulate a figure like $14,800 and use concepts like liquidity and punitive interest. That range is what mastery looks like.
And that really is the key, isn't it? The key to being truly articulate. It's having both the grammatical precision and the sheer breadth of vocabulary to operate in any context, to know the common phrasal verb and its formal high-level equivalent.
Right. When you have that, you can move from just being fluent, just getting by, to being truly effective, being impactful. You become the person in the room that people actually listen to when things get complicated.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought that I think ties both of these dialogues together in a really powerful way. Both Alex, with his career crisis, and Ryan, with his financial chaos. Neither of them found a magic, instant answer. Their solution was found by establishing a concrete process.
That's a fantastic point. For Alex, the process was the thought experiment, carving out time, mulling it over. It was a process for methodical thinking.
And for Ryan, the process was the meticulous budget, the negotiation tactic, the commitment to rein in spending. It was a process for imposing order.
So the solution wasn't the answer itself, but the method to get to the answer.
Exactly. So the next time you're facing that feeling of information overload or you're paralyzed by a big decision, maybe stop asking, what's the perfect outcome? Because outcomes can be unpredictable.
Instead, you should ask,
what is the most effective process I can sort out for myself to guide my very next step?
That focus on process, that's the ultimate tool. That's how you turn all this knowledge, the grammar, the vocabulary, into real, confident action. So we really encourage you to go back, look at those inverted and mixed conditionals again, and commit some of that high-level vocabulary to memory.
It's been an incredibly rich deep dive, from life choices to liquidity.
Thanks for joining us. Keep pushing yourself to use this language in every conversation you have.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. You know why you're here.
You're here to get past the basics.
Exactly. To shortcut your way straight into the high-level thinking on some really challenging topics, we take the source material, these raw, advanced discussions,
and we distill them. We pull out the language you need to be not just fluent, but truly articulate.
And today, we're tackling two incredibly rich conversations that, frankly, demand that kind of precise, powerful vocabulary.
Right, and our mission is to equip you, the listener, with the rhetorical tools to navigate that complexity, even across totally different fields.
That's the real challenge today, isn't it? We're going from the digital world to the cultural one.
A big jump.
First, we're dissecting the systemic, ethical dilemmas of modern tech, specifically the pervasive influence of algorithmic curation and all its ripple effects.
It's the conversation that's shaping our shared reality.
Or maybe dismantling it.
Or dismantling it, yeah. And then we pivot hard. We'll analyze the language of sophisticated cultural critique.
How experts talk about, say, a really challenging piece of theater.
Exactly. How do they express nuanced opinions? How do they critique the execution versus the original intention? It's a whole different lexicon.
So our goal for you is simple. We're giving you the blueprint for this kind of high-level communication.
We've listened to how these experts structure their arguments, how they deploy their vocabulary, how they manage to disagree without just shouting.
And we're giving you that confidence to engage in these debates, using the exact words and structures that really matter.
Think of this as targeted inoculation against vague speech.
I like that.
We've analyzed the conversation between Sarah and David on the digital side and Chloe and Mark on the cultural side.
Okay, so let's start with the one that affects pretty much every waking moment of your life.
The digital landscape.
Let's do it. Okay, so when we talk about how huge platforms, Netflix, YouTube, even a professional site like LinkedIn, decide what to show us.
We're really talking about the mechanisms that shape human behavior on a massive scale.
Right. This isn't small talk. This is high-stakes, systemic critique.
And for that, you need tools that are a lot sharper than just good or bad.
So where do we start?
Well, the first concept any advanced discussion has to confront is this inherent contradiction inside a powerful technology.
Okay.
And we use the term the double-edged sword.
It's an essential idiom, isn't it? Because it forces you to acknowledge the complexity.
Exactly. It's not just something that's flawed. It's that its positive effects are.
Yeah.
They're often completely tied to its negative ones. You can't separate them.
Inextricably linked.
That's the phrase. And in the world of algorithmic curation, this linkage is everything. Let's make it really concrete.
Go ahead.
The positive side, which Sarah argues later, is this amazing potential for discovery. The algorithm can connect you with, incredible niche academic resources or some obscure artist you'd never find otherwise.
A global connection engine.
Right. But the other edge of that exact same sword
is that it systematically excludes everything else.
Yes. By optimizing just for you, the algorithm creates the echo chamber.
Which undermines the very idea of a shared knowledge base that a society needs to function.
So the same tool, hyper-personalization, that helps you discover a niche thing, is the same tool that dismantles the shared public square.
That's the real challenge of the double-edged sword.
Okay, next. We need an adjective that communicates the sheer scale of all this.
The feeling that it's just everywhere.
And for that, we turn to ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous.
It just means present, appearing, or found everywhere.
But when you choose to use a word like ubiquitous instead of just, common or widespread, you're signaling something more.
You're signaling a deep societal saturation. It's not just common. It spans all demographics, all regions. It's total.
The smartphone is the obvious example.
Of course, because its presence is just total.
Mm-hmm.
But think about the platforms themselves. The algorithms are ubiquitous, not just because everyone uses them,
but because their logic, that optimization loop,
has permeated everything. Delivery apps, dating sites, news feeds. So when David later talks about the sheer scale of influence, this is the word that captures that total saturation.
Okay, so if this stuff is ubiquitous, we need a way to talk about how we should think about it.
Right, the level of conscious awareness that's required. And for that, we use the phrase to be cognizant of.
To be cognizant of.
It's an elevation of just being aware. To be cognizant of something means you've actively considered it, you've factored in the consequences.
It's a more formal, more conscious state of knowledge.
Exactly. You're not just vaguely aware that algorithms exist. You are cognizant of the subtle ways they manipulate your attention.
The source material gave the example of a business needing to be cognizant of legal ramifications.
Which suggests a strategic, almost preventative awareness.
Right. So for a user, being cognizant of the echo chamber effect means you're actively working to counteract it. You're not just complaining that it exists.
And that leads us straight to the big one, the negative phenomenon that kind of defines this whole era.
The echo chamber.
It's almost a cliche at this point, but we have to be precise about what it means.
It's an environment where your existing beliefs aren't just reinforced.
They're actively protected from challenge.
And the result, crucially, is a dangerously distorted view of reality because you're only ever shown information that's been filtered to confirm what you already think.
And when David later talks about political extremes being perpetuated by this, he's stressing that it's the architectural design of the platform itself. It's built to please you, and a side effect of that is it isolates you.
Okay, and finally, the name for the process itself, the engine that creates this whole environment.
Algorithmic curation.
You have to use the full phrase, don't you?
I think so. Algorithmic curation. It makes it clear this is not a random feed of information. It is a curated feed.
Someone or something.
Something is consciously choosing what you see. And that choice is driven by a non-human mechanism, the algorithm.
All right, let's unpack that conversation between Sarah and David. After watching this documentary, David used a verb that really, it crystallizes the problem.
He did. He said the documentary really crystallizes how much of our reality is now prepackaged for us.
Crystallizes. I love that verb here. What does it really communicate?
It means it makes something clear and definite. It takes a murky, abstract problem and makes it sharp, undeniable.
So he's not just saying the documentary explained it.
No, he's saying it made it tangible. This idea that our reality is prepackaged for us in this frictionless experience.
Frictionless, another key term.
Yeah, the system eliminates effort. But the trade-off is this manufactured reality.
And David follows that up. He says that frictionless design creates deeply entrenched echo chambers. Let's talk about that word, entrenched.
It's a powerful choice.
How does it change the weight of his critique compared to just saying deep echo chambers?
Well, entrenched suggests something that is so strongly established, it's incredibly difficult to change.
It's a military term, right? A fortified position.
Exactly. It's dug in. So when he says the echo chambers are entrenched, he's communicating a sense of permanence, a sense that this isn't just an accidental side effect.
It's a structural feature of the whole system.
Yes.
Which brings us back to that double-edged sword conflict that Sarah introduces.
Right, because she acknowledges the risk. She sees the polarization, the entrenched negative side.
But she argues for the positive potential. For her, the algorithm is how she discovers those incredible niche creators and academic resources.
She's basically saying the tool has genuinely enriched her intellectual life.
She's granting the algorithm is flawed, but for her, it's still a net positive.
And David, to his credit, grants her the point, which is a key skill we'll get to later. But then he immediately pivots to his core concern.
The optimization target?
Yes. This is where it gets really interesting.
David's argument is that the system optimizes for engagement, for keeping your eyes on the screen.
Not for truth or intellectual betterment.
And what does that distinction really imply about the whole business model?
It implies that intellectual value is not a profitable metric. The fundamental driver is time spent and the ad revenue that generates. Truth, complexity, depth, that often requires friction.
It requires you to pause, to think, maybe even to leave the platform to go look something up.
And the system is designed against that. It rewards content that is instantly stimulating, highly emotional, regardless of whether it's actually true.
So if the system rewards that instant stimulation, that explains David's fear.
The fear that for every one diligent user like Sarah who's out there seeking academic content,
there are 100 others being passively fed a diet of conspiracy theories or vapid entertainment.
And that adjective, vapid, is doing so much work in his critique.
It means what? Lacking substance.
Lacking spirit, originality, substance. It's fundamentally empty. He's not just saying the content is bad or silly. He's saying it is structurally engineered to be shallow.
Because shallow is often the most engaging.
It requires zero intellectual effort and gives you that instant gratification.
So we're seeing this systematic feedback loop. The platform learns what keeps people watching, whether it's, shallow drama or outrage.
And it just feeds you more of it. It systematically deprioritizes the kind of intellectual depth Sarah values, simply because depth doesn't guarantee 5 more minutes of viewing time.
That is the core conflict.
And this systemic critique, it leads them right to the question of responsibility.
Right. Who's to blame?
Well, Sarah, from her optimistic user perspective, argues that the onus,
the duty, the responsibility,
is on the user to be more discerning.
Her argument is that the tools to burst your filter bubble are, and she uses this word, ostensibly there.
Okay, let's pause on that word, ostensibly. David uses it, and it's a formal adverb that signals his skepticism.
So what's he really communicating by saying the tools are ostensibly there?
He's implying that the apparent reality is different from the true underlying reality.
So he's conceding the technical point.
Yes, the unlike button exists, the search bar exists.
Yeah.
But he's subtly undermining the idea that this is a practical solution for most people.
He's suggesting that while they're there on the surface, the overwhelming force of the algorithm makes them kind of useless.
It's a really sophisticated way to critique perceived choice versus actual agency.
That's a great point. It's like demanding someone on a high-speed treadmill just choose to walk backwards.
Exactly. It's technically possible, I guess, but it would require this immense, exhausting effort against a powerful engineered force.
And that is David's counterargument.
Yes. Demanding users seek out opposing views requires a level of media literacy that many people simply don't possess.
And that's the pivot from user failure to systemic failure.
If the system is so complex that navigating it is exhausting, then demanding user discernment is just. It's an unrealistic solution.
So when we connect this whole debate to the bigger picture, David's main worry and the big fear of the documentary, they watched it all.
It crystallizes around the erosion of a shared public square.
This is the most critical societal implication, right?
Absolutely.
If everyone's information diet is hyper-personalized, filtered to their unique biases, how do we even debate policy or science if we can't agree on a baseline set of facts?
You can't. The foundation of democratic dialogue requires some level of shared reality, and this technology threatens that very reality.
It's the ultimate consequence of that double-edged sword.
The tool that facilitates global connection also facilitates this deep, unresolvable division.
Yeah, if my algorithm is showing me climate change is a hoax and yours is showing coastal cities drowning.
Our conversation about infrastructure spending is completely impossible. We have no common ground to stand on.
But Sarah, she offers a necessary correction to David's pessimism.
She does. She suggests this might all just be a societal learning curve.
Her argument is that as the tech becomes more ubiquitous, our collective awareness and ability to navigate it will improve.
We always adapt to new media, right? No matter how destructive it seems at first.
And to make that point, she uses this high-level rhetorical structure to look at past failures and future possibilities.
It's a C2 level masterpiece of grammar. The inverted mixed conditional.
Can you say what she said?
She stated, had we known the psychological effects a decade ago, we might have regulated these platforms differently.
Okay, what's so fascinating about that is the sheer elegance of the inversion.
Right. Instead of the more common, maybe clunky, if we had known.
She just launches right into it. Had we known. It's a subtle but powerful signal of formal, high-level English.
It adds intellectual weight.
Yeah.
And the structure itself is just perfect for this kind of historical reflection.
It combines a past unreal condition, we didn't know the effects, with a consequence about a different past possibility.
The chance that we might have regulated differently, it perfectly captures that sense of reflective regret, speculating on missed opportunities.
Let's practice that structure because it's so useful for high-stakes reflection. You could apply it to any field.
Okay, what about, say, the financial crisis?
Something like, had we paid closer attention to the subprime lending data in 2006, the outcome for the global economy might have been entirely different.
Perfect. Or culturally.
Had the director chosen a less explicit ending, the message might have resonated more powerfully with the audience.
Or even scientifically. Had we been able to synthesize that complex molecule sooner, the medical breakthroughs might have arrived a decade earlier.
Mastering that inversion, it immediately elevates your discourse when you're speculating about how the past could have changed the present.
So, given that the technology is now ubiquitous and the consequences are entrenched, where do they land on a solution?
Well, David and Sarah agreed it has to be multi-pronged.
Right. The consensus was a combination of robust regulation and a massive public education campaign.
They were completely aligned on this. It's not enough to just change the rules for the platforms.
You have to change how users interact with the rules. You have to change the people.
Right. The emphasis was on equipping the next generation with the capacity to critically deconstruct the media they consume.
Which moves the user from being a passive recipient, which was David's fear of vapid entertainment,
to an active, skeptical master of the tool.
And that brought them to their final point of complete agreement. A statement that really encapsulates the entire discussion.
What was it?
It's not about rejecting the technology, but about mastering it before it masters us.
And that is the essential challenge facing society right now, crystallized through that whole conversation. Okay, let's make that pivot. We're transitioning now from the systemic analytical language of digital ethics
to the subjective, evaluative language of artistic critique.
This second segment is all about the challenge of articulating nuanced opinions about a creative work, moving way beyond just saying, I liked it or I didn't like it.
Right, this domain, it requires a different kind of vocabulary, an emotional vocabulary, evaluative phrases that can capture subtlety.
You can't use the same blunt language you use for algorithms.
You'd fail to do justice to the art.
So let's start with an adjective that describes the intent of a lot of challenging art.
Okay. Subversive.
A play or film that's subversive? What is it really doing?
It's not just trying to offend you. It actively seeks to challenge or undermine or even overthrow an established system or an authority or just a conventional social norm.
It's not shocking for the sake of being shocking.
No, it's fundamentally designed to rattle the foundations of what you think is true.
So, for example, a play isn't subversive just because it has swear words.
Right, it's subversive because it, say, presents the villain as the moral center of the story, forcing you, the audience, to question your own ethical framework.
Okay, next up, a term for the desired emotional effect of this kind of work,
Cathartic.
which comes from ancient Greek theater.
Exactly. Catharsis means cleansing or purging. So a cathartic experience in modern terms is one that provides this intense psychological relief.
Through the open expression of really strong emotions, pity, fear, despair,
Yeah, if a performance is truly cathartic, you leave the theater emotionally exhausted,
but feeling oddly lighter.
as if a weight has been lifted. The art has let you process something deep and internal.
And when something is just truly masterful, we borrow a phrase from French.
We do. Tour de force.
A tour de force.
It literally means a feat of strength.
Yeah.
And you reserve it for a really impressive, masterful achievement. It is the highest praise.
It signals exceptional skill, sustained brilliance.
It just instantly elevates the discussion, way above saying something was great.
You'd use it for an actor who just nails a complex role, or a director whose staging was flawless.
It implies a total mastery of the craft.
Okay, to talk about complex characters, we need the concept of a nuanced portrayal.
Nuance just means subtlety. So a nuanced portrayal is one that avoids simple classification.
It's not black and white.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It acknowledges that people, and therefore characters, are contradictory. It shows their vulnerabilities alongside their strengths, or the complex motivations that drive their actions.
So if a character is just purely good or purely evil, the writing is simplistic.
But if the villain's portrayal is nuanced, it shows you the psychological context, the trauma, the societal pressures that shape them.
Which makes them compelling and unsettlingly human.
Exactly. And finally, the term we use to critique a failure of that subtlety.
On the nose.
Right. When a critic calls a piece of art on the nose, they mean the message is just overly direct. It's too obvious. It lacks subtlety.
It's a critique of the artist not trusting the audience.
That's it, exactly. They feel they have to spell out the message, and in doing so, they kill the art of suggestion.
Okay, let's bring these terms to life. Let's analyze that conversation between Chloe and Mark right after they saw that intense play.
And Mark's first reaction, that he needs a minute to decompress, that immediately signals the play's power.
It had a profound impact.
Yes. And Chloe, she's just overwhelmed by it. She immediately uses that high praise. She calls it an absolute tour de force.
And says she was utterly transfixed by the final monologue. That adverb, utterly, it communicates total, complete absorption.
The actor achieved that masterful feat of strength.
But Mark, he's more of a critic. And he immediately does something really important. He separates the execution from the script itself.
He makes a graceful concession. He says, the lead actor was phenomenal, I'll grant you that.
So he's acknowledging the performance was brilliant. He notes the actor's commanding presence.
But then he shifts his focus to the writing. And he says he found some of the themes a little heavy-handed.
Heavy-handed. That's a crucial critical term. It means what? Clumsy. Overly forceful.
Both. He felt the play was trying too hard to make its point, which in art often backfires.
And this leads them right into a debate about the playwright's intention versus the audience's experience.
Right, because Chloe defends the play from the perspective of intention. She argues it was brilliantly subversive.
She says it was designed to be unsettling. The discomfort is the point.
And for her, that intensity made it a cathartic experience. She felt cleansed by it.
Mark, though, he focuses on the execution. He agrees with the subversive intent.
But he felt the dialogue failed to deliver it with subtlety. He found it a bit on the nose.
And to make his critique credible, he gives a specific, devastating example.
He does. He points to the moment when the father literally spells out the metaphor of the broken birdcage.
Oh, that's rough. The broken birdcage is such a classic symbol of entrapment.
Right. But by having the character say, this broken birdcage is like our broken family, the playwright just robbed the audience of doing any intellectual work.
That is the very definition of on the nose.
And his critique has weight because it's so specific. But Chloe, instead of just rejecting it, she uses this fantastic rhetorical structure to manage their disagreement.
What does she say?
She says, I see your point, but I interpreted that differently.
Ah, so she validates his observation.
Without accepting his negative conclusion. She suggests that maybe the dialogue's sudden obviousness wasn't a failure, but a reflection of the character's psychological breakdown.
A moment of desperation where subtlety just vanishes.
Exactly.
That is highly sophisticated debate. They're not just disagreeing, they're debating the mechanism of the artistic choice.
And they do find common ground, which shows the power of having this precise, agreed-upon language.
On the mother's character.
Right, they both agree the most compelling part was the nuanced portrayal of the mother.
She wasn't just a victim. She wasn't just a villain.
And they moved beyond simple praise to this really detailed description. They called her a complex tapestry of strength and fragility.
A tapestry, a weaving of different threads. That's a perfect metaphor for her contradictory character.
And Chloe pointed to these specific, tiny details in her performance. The way she wouldn't look at her husband during an argument.
The way she physically shielded her daughter, even while silent.
And the small, almost imperceptible tremor in her hand when she picked up a glass. That signaled her internal conflict.
And Mark observed that the mother's silent moments on stage spoke volumes more than any of the more explicit dialogue.
Which is a precise distinction. The subtle nonverbal acting had more impact than the forceful script.
The actor delivered a nuanced portrayal, but the playwright delivered a heavy-handed script.
That's the core of his critique. And they also agreed on the mastery of the staging.
The minimalist set design.
Yes, the lack of clutter. They said it was effective because it forced the audience to focus entirely on the actor's internal conflicts, their psychological turmoil.
The simplicity amplified the emotional complexity.
And Mark's final, lingering reservation ties his whole critique together. He says the play was at times potentially didactic.
Meaning it was trying to teach a moral lesson too, obviously.
Right. If art is too didactic, it stops feeling like art and starts feeling like a sermon.
Chloe, of course, called that approach brave.
But Mark's final thought, that the play will be rattling around in my head for days, that's the highest compliment, isn't it?
It is. The complex, enduring impact, whether you loved every part of it or not, that's the mark of effective art. It's compelling. It transcends your immediate judgment. So we've seen this advanced vocabulary used in two wildly different intellectual arenas.
But the real deep dive here is understanding that these skills are transferable.
Knowing these terms, it moves you from just being an informed listener
to being an articulate participant.
We have to reiterate that this level of vocabulary, it moves beyond just conversational fluency. It's about true articulacy.
The capacity to capture the shades of meaning, the mechanisms of complexity in your own arguments.
So let's quickly review those key high-level words. From the text segment, David used crystallizes to make an abstract problem concrete.
He talked about problems being entrenched. Not just deep, but fortified, hard to dislodge.
And he worried about vapid entertainment, signaling that deliberate lack of substance.
Then from the arts segment, Mark showed that sophisticated criticism by calling themes heavy-handed and the writing didactic.
But they both praised the performance's compelling nature and the mother's nuanced portrayal.
These are analytical tools. They're not just descriptive labels.
And we have to circle back to the precision of those formal adverbs. David's strategic use of ostensibly was, I thought, a masterclass in subtle disagreement.
It's a polite, formal way to say, you might think this is true, but I'm suggesting the underlying reality is different.
So when David said the tools for change are ostensibly there, he was casting doubt on whether those tools actually work in practice.
Without directly calling Sarah wrong, he's implying the appearance of choice is a kind of deception.
Using adverbs like ostensibly, or how Mark used literally to emphasize how on the nose the dialogue was.
It adds texture, specificity, and a necessary layer of skepticism to your arguments.
It's one thing to know the words, but high-level discourse is about deployment, how you use them.
And those source dialogues were so rich with pragmatic skills, the rhetorical structures that let you manage disagreement respectfully.
The ability to make concessions gracefully, that might be the most important marker of mature discourse.
You don't just steamroll someone's point. You acknowledge its validity before you introduce your own reservation. We saw three key structures.
Okay, the first was the direct concession. I'll grant you that.
Mark used it to praise the actor before critiquing the script. David used it to acknowledge Sarah's point before raising his own concern.
It's a clean structural signal. It says, I hear you, and now I'm about to challenge you.
Second, the respectful engagement. I see your point, but I interpreted that differently.
Chloe used that to pivot away from Mark's on-the-nose critique.
Right. She offered an alternative explanation. It shows you're not dismissing their idea, you're engaging with it and just offering a different analytical frame.
And third, the beautiful way to state unification. On that, we are in complete agreement.
Sarah used that to show that despite their disagreements, they were unified on the systemic solution.
Stating common ground explicitly, it strengthens the whole foundation of the debate. It shows the disagreement is localized and constructive.
And let's revisit the grammar for elegance one last time. That C2 inversion. It makes such a difference to your spoken authority.
Sarah's use of the inverted mixed conditional. Had we known.
Right. That structure, had we past participle, you might have past participle. It's the gold standard for speculating on historical alternatives.
We saw how it worked with technology. Let's cement it with a couple more examples from the cultural critique.
Absolutely. Regarding the play, had the director decided to keep the original, less explicit ending, the critical reaction might have been less divided.
You're speculating on a different artistic choice leading to a different outcome.
Or more personally, about the experience itself, had I paid closer attention to the actor's subtle nonverbal cues in the first act, my reading of the play might have been far more nuanced.
That inverted conditional structure is the perfect linguistic vehicle for advanced contemplative thought in any domain.
It lets you speak with sophistication about how the world might have been.
And finally, let's just acknowledge the power of idiomatic language. Mark's final reflection that the play would be rattling around in my head for days.
It's just a perfect, natural phrase to express that lasting, compulsory impact.
Right. The goal of great art or great information isn't immediate closure. It's enduring intellectual challenge.
Exactly.
So we have successfully mapped this complex terrain today.
Moving from the systemic ethical debates of ubiquitous technology all the way to the demands of precise, high-stakes cultural critique.
We've armed you with vocabulary, from entrenched to vapid, and critical tools from heavy-handed to tour de force.
But more importantly, we've shown you how to structure an argument using strategic concessions like, I'll grant you that, and the rhetorical elegance of that inverted conditional.
The language gained today provides the scaffolding for true articulacy.
Not just understanding the content of these complex discussions, but actively engaging in them, structuring a nuanced position while still respecting different perspectives.
We concluded that digital segment worrying about the erosion of a shared public square.
Because of those personalized echo chamber algorithms. We know personalization helps discovery, like Sarah argued.
But standardization helps create a shared reality, which David sees as essential.
And we are left with the core challenge. It's not about rejecting the technology, but mastering it.
And we need to define where that line is drawn, between the benefit of hyper-personalization and the societal need for a common informational baseline.
So here is the provocative thought we want to leave you with, something that's been rattling around in our heads since this deep dive.
If mastery requires a shared frame of reference, should major platforms, the ones that are essential for public discourse, be required to provide a common feed option?
A baseline, curated stream that is devoid of all personal algorithmic influence.
To restore a shared public square for all users.
This is the debate we encourage you to engage with, using the precise language we've shared today.
Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning,
And keep speaking with precision.
See you on the next deep dive. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're undertaking a truly expansive mission.
We really are.
We're trying to bridge the gap between, on the one hand, this monumental high-stakes chaos of global policy.
Right.
And on the other, this intensely personal, almost silent quest for internal tranquility.
Indeed. And look, we are not here to just skim the surface. This deep dive is really about consolidating knowledge across what seem like totally disparate fields.
Global environmental policy and ancient personal philosophy.
Exactly. The goal here is to help you achieve what we call C2 level comprehension.
And we should probably define that. It's not just about being fluent, is it?
Not at all. It's the highest mark, really, of linguistic and intellectual mastery. It's where you move beyond simply knowing about a topic to being truly articulate.
So you possess a deep, sort of nuanced understanding of the implications of the information.
That's the key word, the implications. Our source material for today is a fascinating synthesis of these two worlds.
It really is. On one side, we're dissecting the most sophisticated vocabulary, and I think the rhetorical moves used in the debate over climate policy.
And on the other, we're examining this enduring personal quest for a meaningful, maybe even anxiety-free life, all explored through the very practical framework of Stoicism.
So the goal isn't just to repeat the information.
No, the goal is to extract the core insights, but more importantly, to analyze the sophisticated language that you need to discuss these topics with the precision they really deserve.
So this deep dive is designed to elevate your ability to articulate complex ideas.
Right, whether you're, debating the necessity of systemic change with a friend or just reflecting privately on how you manage daily stress.
So settle in. Our journey today is pretty sharply divided. First, we're going to spend a good amount of time grappling with the external crisis.
The urgency, the political paralysis, the rhetorical strategies around global warming.
And then we're going to make a very deliberate shift inward.
We'll explore that ancient philosophical antidote to modern anxiety. Stoicism.
Okay, let's unpack this. I think we should dive straight into the high-stakes climate debate.
Let's do it.
What immediately struck me about the conversation we analyzed was just how quickly the speakers established the central, unyielding tension.
You mean the trade-off?
The trade-off, exactly.
Yeah.
Between the speed and the scale of the action that's needed. It's a fight, really.
It is. It's a fight between those who are demanding immediate, systemic overhaul and those who are prioritizing, politically achievable, pragmatic steps.
And that tension it's kind of the bedrock of the entire policy discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the only way to even frame that debate is to first establish the severity of the challenge using this specialized, almost alarming vocabulary.
Okay, so let's start there. The first crucial term that sets the stage for maximum urgency.
The first is existential threat.
Right. A phrase that has, I think, saturated public discourse. It almost loses its meaning sometimes.
It absolutely does. It gets overused. But when it's applied to climate change, the source material argues it has to be understood in its most terrifying, most precise sense.
So what is that precise sense?
Well, when analysts or policymakers use the term existential threat, they're not just suggesting a difficult challenge or, say, an economic hurdle.
It's not just another problem on the list.
Not at all. They're signaling the highest possible level of danger, one that endangers the very existence or the fundamental structure of human civilization as we know it.
The stakes couldn't be higher.
Exactly. And crucially, the sources imply that if the threat is truly existential, then all the standard rules, they go out the window.
What kind of rules?
Things like standard democratic timelines, economic efficiency models, political caution, all of it becomes secondary.
So an existential threat demands an emergency response?
An emergency response, yes. Something equivalent to preparing for a world war or a global pandemic or, an asteroid strike. It changes the entire frame of reference.
But that right there, that definition, immediately raises a political difficulty, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, how do you mobilize a global population to sacrifice now for a catastrophe that, while it is existential, is perceived by many people to be abstract or decades away?
Right. The timeline problem. And that's where the companion concept comes in.
The tipping point.
The tipping point.
Yeah.
This concept is what fundamentally short-circuits that comfortable timeline.
Can you break that down for us? What is a tipping point in this context?
A tipping point is that critical moment where a small, incremental change triggers a massive, self-reinforcing, and often irreversible consequence within a complex system.
Self-reinforcing is a key idea there.
It is. In the context of the climate, we're talking about certain thresholds.
For example?
Things like the collapse of the Greenland ice sheet, or the permanent slowing of the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, the AMOC.
The big ocean current.
That's the one. Or the massive release of methane from thawing permafrost. These are systems with their own momentum.
So the moment we cross that threshold, we lose agency.
Precisely. That's the perfect way to put it. The core scientific implication is that once these thresholds are crossed, the system changes dramatically and permanently.
Irrespective of what we do after that point.
Irrespective of any future human mitigation efforts. And this concept, this idea of irreversible change, is what fundamentally justifies the urgency argument.
Because if we are truly near a tipping point,
then every incremental delay, every month, every year, risks triggering an unavoidable catastrophe.
Meaning the time for what one of the speakers called gentle nudges is over.
It's long over, according to this view.
Okay, so if the tipping point is the mechanism that triggers this feeling of urgency, the policy prescription that follows from that side, and it was represented in our source material by Liam, is the argument for rapid systemic change.
And this perspective is absolutely unyielding. It views the problem not as a series of small issues, but as one of structural failure.
He argued that the latest climate reports are, and I'm quoting here, utterly grim.
Right. And that phrase isn't just for effect. It signifies that we are far past the window where voluntary changes or small tweaks could possibly suffice.
So the belief here is that the crisis demands something called deep decarbonization.
Which is a rapid, complete overhaul of global energy, transportation, and industrial systems. A total redesign.
And on a timeline dictated by physics, not by political cycles.
That's the core of the argument. The planet doesn't care about our election schedules.
And the immediate target for critique from this urgency camp is often focused on attempts to make individual responsibility the primary solution.
Yes, especially measures like carbon offsetting.
This is where the critique moves from a kind of philosophical disagreement to a very technical analysis.
It really does, because on the surface, carbon offsetting compensating for your emissions by funding projects elsewhere, like planting trees, it seems responsible. It feels good.
But the source material just dismisses it vehemently.
It does. It's called a distraction from the necessary systemic change.
There was a metaphor used to describe this failure that was incredibly vivid and effective.
I remember it well.
Likening carbon offsetting to putting a sticking plaster on a hemorrhaging artery, a Band-Aid basically.
Yes.
But to achieve that C2 comprehension we talked about, we need to understand why that metaphor holds analytical weight, not just rhetorical flourish. Why is it a hemorrhaging artery?
That's the right question. The inadequacy isn't just a feeling, it's rooted in specific technical mechanisms. Things like additionality, permanence, and leakage.
Okay, let's break those down. What is additionality?
For an offset project to be legitimate, it must be additional. That means the trees, for example, wouldn't have been planted without your offset money. If they were going to be planted anyway, you haven't actually offset anything.
Okay, that makes sense. What about permanence?
It must be permanent. The carbon you're offsetting needs to stay captured. If you plant a forest but it burns down in 20 years, releasing all that carbon back into the atmosphere, the offset has failed.
And leakage.
And there must be no leakage. This is a tricky one. It means the land used for your trees doesn't just push the carbon-emitting activity like cattle ranching somewhere else.
So you protect one forest, but another one gets cut down just over the hill because of it.
Exactly. You've just moved the problem, not solved it.
And the sources suggest that most existing schemes, well, they fail these tests.
They do. Analysts argue that many schemes are just incredibly prone to failure on the long timeline required for genuine climate impact.
So that's why the metaphor works. It communicates that focusing effort and political capital on these individualized, sometimes dubious schemes is a dangerous exercise in what they call complacency.
It is. It allows corporations and governments to delay the painful, deep structural changes that are actually required.
All while creating the illusion of action.
And that illusion makes the crisis worse.
So the ultimate conclusion from this urgent perspective is the demand for massive coordinated government intervention now.
Now, not 5 years.
Even if that intervention is, and this is another key phrase, politically painful.
Yes, and the argument for that is because we have already, in their words, squandered the gentle transition period. We had our chance for a slow, easy path.
And that chance is gone.
It's gone. So the only tools left are systemic mandates. Things like prohibitive carbon taxes or immediate regulatory shutdowns on high-emitting sectors. Painful, but necessary.
Which brings us directly to the counter-argument, the other side of the coin.
The perspective championed by Chloe in the sources. The call for pragmatism and grassroots solutions.
And this side views those demands for immediate radical action as, well, politically self-defeating.
Utterly self-defeating. They warn specifically against what the source terms draconian measures.
That's a very specific word choice. We need to analyze that carefully.
We do. The term draconian, which refers to excessively harsh and severe laws, isn't just used to describe the measures. It's used to predict their political fallout.
It's a warning.
It's a huge warning. The critique is that policies that immediately impose massive costs or lifestyle changes, like certain types of sudden, large-scale carbon taxes on gasoline or heating,
The things people feel directly in their wallets.
immediately. The argument is that those policies will not generate compliance. They will generate organized resistance.
And there's a history lesson here that they point to.
A critical one. They argue that demanding immediate draconian measures is politically naive
Why?
because such policies often result in catastrophic public backlash and long-term failure.
We can look at examples like the Yellow Vest movement in France, right? That was partly a response to fuel tax hikes.
Precisely. That's the textbook case. The pragmatist camp understands that policy has to work within the current political and economic reality. You can't just wish it away.
So what's their fundamental belief?
The fundamental belief is in the power of grassroots movements. They argue that individual actions—
But not the offsetting schemes.
No, not the offsetting schemes. Genuine local engagement, technological adoption, shifts in consumer preference. These are the essential building blocks that, they say, build political will.
So the idea is you can't expect the government to enforce something that the population is actively rejecting.
You can't. The political will has to be built from the ground up.
And they cite historical social changes for this.
Yes, things like the fight for suffrage or the civil rights movement as proof that top-down solutions require a deep popular foundation to avoid being just temporary mandates that get overturned at the next election.
So instead of punitive measures like high taxes designed to punish fossil fuel use,
The pragmatic solution focuses on incentivizing the alternative. The proposal is for massive investment in green innovation.
with the goal being to make sustainable choices what was the phrase? The easy and affordable default.
Yes. Not the expensive, difficult alternative that it is for so many people now.
And that really is the core policy distinction, isn't it?
It is. Instead of using punitive measures, and that word punitive is key, measures intended to inflict punishment or pain.
Which they say alienate the very people you need to bring on board.
The pragmatists favor policies that fund R&D, that subsidize renewable infrastructure, and that make electric vehicles cheaper, ultimately, than internal combustion engine cars.
It's an approach focused on market pull rather than regulatory push.
A carrot instead of a stick.
And what's fascinating here, I think, is the sophisticated rejection of emotional guidance in policymaking. Chloe's concluding statement in that exchange was one of the most quotable moments.
I agree. It was a masterstroke of rhetoric.
Despair is a poor policy advisor.
It's just a brilliant line because it acknowledges the overwhelming emotional gravity of the crisis. It says, I get it, the sheer scale of the despair is understandable.
Yeah.
But effective policy has to be built on rational strategy and resilience, not on panic.
Because panic leads to poor political choices.
Poor choices, backlash, and ultimate failure. That line forces the debate back to the cold calculus of practicality. How can we actually succeed, not just how should we feel about the problem?
So in this complex first section, we have these two deeply articulated opposing viewpoints.
One demanding maximum speed because the clock has run out.
And the other demanding resilience and political savvy, warning that unsupported radicalism just guarantees the failure of the entire movement.
And this leads us to a crucial element of our C2 deep dive.
Okay.
The real learning here is not just knowing what Liam and Chloe said, but understanding the intellectual armor, the how of their debate.
The blueprint.
This section provides you with a blueprint for highly articulated opposition. How to disagree fundamentally and strongly without descending into unproductive conflict.
Which is the difference between a shouting match and a substantive argument. So what were the specific rhetorical techniques they used to keep the discussions so elevated?
Well, we observed several sophisticated distancing techniques. First, I noticed the use of strong yet politely constructed opposition phrases.
So instead of just saying, I think you're wrong.
Exactly. The language was much more nuanced. Chloe used the phrase, I'm wary of the rhetoric that.
I like that. By saying she's wary of the rhetoric, she isn't attacking Liam's facts or him personally.
No, she's questioning the narrative, the chosen language structure being used by the other side. In this case, the language of immediate catastrophe and necessary sacrifice. It's a very subtle way to reframe the argument.
And then, when total disagreement was required, the phrase was a bit different.
Yes, it was, I fundamentally disagree that.
Which signals total intellectual opposition.
It does. The difference isn't a small detail. It's about a core foundational premise about how policy should be executed. But because it begins with that polite introductory framing, it remains professional and elevated. It's not personal.
Another powerful move I saw was the deployment of rhetorical challenges, the kind designed to shift the burden of proof.
Oh, yes. Liam's use of, but what's the alternative, is a textbook example.
Walk us through that moment.
Absolutely. So when Chloe criticized the call for urgent systemic change as draconian, Liam immediately recognized he had to neutralize her critique.
And how does that question do it?
It forces her to present an equally viable functional plan. He forces her to move beyond just critique and into solution territory.
Because if she can't provide a successful, rapid alternative,
Then her pragmatic approach is implicitly judged as insufficient for an existential threat. It's a very effective debating tactic.
Yeah. The exchange was also, it was heavily reliant on vocabulary chosen specifically for its rhetorical weight.
Absolutely. And we need to analyze not just the definitions, but their function within the argument.
Okay, we mentioned complacency, which is, self-satisfaction or a lack of effort in the face of a known danger.
But it's also a powerful moralizing tool. Liam uses it to imply that anyone favoring slow, pragmatic steps is suffering from a dangerous moral or intellectual failure.
A complacency that could lead to planetary ruin. It raises the stakes of their position.
Precisely.
We also heard the word sobering.
Yes. This implies a seriousness or gravity that brings you back to a harsh reality. When a scientific report is described as sobering, it means the findings are serious enough to demand you suspend any optimism or denial.
It prepares the listener for bad news that just has to be accepted.
It does. Then there's unprecedented. This term is absolutely central to the urgency argument.
How so?
By calling the crisis unprecedented, Liam is arguing that standard incremental political rules cannot apply.
Therefore, justifying the need for equally unprecedented radical state intervention.
You got it.
And conversely, the pragmatist side uses terms like incremental, but they use it in a dismissive way.
Yes, it's the precise, clinical term used to dismiss slow change. And that's the key. The difference between incremental and systemic change is the core policy split.
Incremental means slow, step-by-step progress.
Right. And Liam argued we can't afford to be incremental any longer. Chloe argued that radical non-incremental change is politically unstable. The entire debate hinges on which word you believe applies to the current situation.
And finally, let's just revisit punitive. This comes from the pragmatist side.
Arguing against measures that are designed primarily to punish citizens or industries for unsustainable behavior.
And Chloe used that term to tap into a core political fear, didn't she?
A huge one. The fear that voters will revolt against policies they perceive as unfair punishments, even if those policies are necessary for the greater good.
So, by framing mandatory taxes as punitive, she successfully casts the urgency camp as potentially authoritarian, or at least detached from economic reality.
Very effective rhetoric.
And speaking of linguistic sophistication, I want to talk about the grammar of regret used at the end of that urgent exchange, the powerful use of the third conditional. This is something for you to really internalize.
Yes, this is a perfect example of how a specific grammar structure can convey complex meaning and, crucially, a specific emotional state.
The line was, if we had started taking this seriously 30 years ago, that approach might have worked.
Let's really dissect the emotional impact of that sentence.
Please.
The third conditional expresses regret or speculation about a past, unreal condition and its impossible or constrained past consequence.
Okay, so the structure is the past perfect for the hypothetical action,
If we had started.
combined with a modal perfect for the hypothetical result.
Might work.
The real power, though, it lies in the unspoken reality it implies.
Exactly. The clear implication, which just resonates with regret and also justification for current radicalism, is this. We did not start taking it seriously, and therefore that gradual, pragmatic approach is now irrevocably off the table.
It's a way of saying we missed our window for a gentle solution.
And our options have now shrunk to the difficult, radical choices. It's an incredibly sophisticated way of saying, don't blame me for the radical demands. Blame the past inaction that limited our present possibilities.
Wow. Okay. Now, in what feels like a necessary pivot, we need to shift gears pretty dramatically.
We do. Having immersed ourselves in all that external chaos, the existential threat, the political paralysis of global policy,
We're now turning to the internal search for meaning and stability.
in the stress generated by that external environment, the overwhelming scale of the problems we've just discussed is precisely why we're seeing this resurgence of Stoicism as a tool for personal growth and resilience.
The link here is anxiety management. That's what connects these two topics. If you feel overwhelmed by the existential threats we talked about in the first section, where do you find a foothold?
You turn inward.
You have to.
Correct. And the first concept we really need to define is the modern psychological problem that Stoicism so perfectly addresses. And that is the hedonic treadmill.
This feeling is just so pervasive in modern culture, isn't it? Especially in high achievement environments.
It's everywhere. The hedonic treadmill, or hedonic adaptation, is the psychological phenomenon of consistently returning to a baseline level of happiness, regardless of major external life events.
So give us an example.
Think about getting a new, powerful smartphone, or landing a massive promotion at work, or moving into your dream apartment.
The initial jolt of joy is intense. It's a real high.
A true high. But within months, sometimes just weeks, you adapt. It just becomes the new normal.
And you start looking for the next thing to provide that thrill.
The next hit. The source material captured the resulting anxiety perfectly. It described it as the low-grade anxiety that's generated by this constant striving.
For the next achievement, the next purchase.
All of it driven by the illusion that this time it will bring lasting satisfaction.
But it never does. The treadmill just keeps spinning and you keep running.
Whether it's chasing status on social media or constantly upgrading your technology, the core truth remains. It's a game you can't win.
Why not?
Because your emotional baseline keeps resetting. So you are constantly driven to seek more intense external stimuli just to feel the same level of temporary satisfaction.
And this striving is what generates the fatigue, the dissatisfaction, the chronic anxiety that defines so much of modern high-achieving life.
It's exhausting.
And that sets the stage perfectly for the ancient remedy. The Stoic solution to this relentless hedonic treadmill
Is the dichotomy of control.
This is the absolute core of the philosophy.
It is. Developed most famously by the philosopher Epictetus. And it is the rigorous daily practice of sorting everything in your life into two and only two categories.
Things within your control.
And things outside it.
Okay, before we detail those categories, I think we have to address a really common misunderstanding of Stoicism.
I know the one you mean.
Doesn't this philosophy breed apathy or fatalism? If I stop caring about external outcomes, won't I just stop trying to achieve anything?
That is the crucial distinction that the C2 learner must grasp. Stoicism is not apathy.
How is it different?
Apathy means you don't care about the outcome. Stoicism means you care intensely about the outcome, but you recognize that the outcome itself is external and therefore subject to fortune, to luck, to other people.
So
Instead, you focus 100% of your energy and effort on the process, on your actions and intentions, which are internal and completely controllable.
Okay, so let's get specific. What falls within that controllable sphere?
Your thoughts, your actions, your judgments about events, your character, and the effort you expend. That's it.
And what falls outside of your control?
Everything else. The stock market, the weather, whether your flight is on time, whether the government implements the right climate policy,
Bringing it back to section 1.
and critically, what other people think or say about you.
The source material calls this focus on what you can control a radical act. Why radical?
It's radical because it is deeply, deeply countercultural. Modern life encourages us to try and manipulate external reality. Whether it's through constant communication, obsessive planning, or just purchasing power, we're taught to try and bend the world to our will to achieve comfort.
The Stoic act is to give up that illusion of external control.
It is. And to accept that your happiness doesn't come from a perfect set of circumstances, but from the quality of your internal response to imperfect circumstances.
And this shift becomes the powerful antidote to the treadmill.
It does, because it conserves your energy. It forces you to invest your time and attention only where you can actually be effective.
Okay, let's apply this directly to the policy debate we just analyzed. If a Stoic listened to Liam and Chloe arguing about the existential threat, how would they use the dichotomy of control to process that anxiety?
It's a great question. They would immediately start filtering the overwhelming information.
Yeah.
They'd say, okay, I cannot control whether the government implements a carbon tax. That's external. I cannot control whether a tipping point is crossed. Also external.
But what can they control?
They can, however, control their own efforts in grassroots organization, their own voting decisions, their own consumption habits, and crucially, their own emotional reaction to the terrifying news.
So the goal isn't to stop caring about climate change.
Not at all. It's to channel that energy away from useless panic and into effective controlled action.
And that transition from theory to practice, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The concept of voluntary hardship.
This is perhaps the most famous, yet most misunderstood Stoic practice, especially in our comfort-obsessed culture.
What is it exactly?
It is the deliberate choice to experience minor, non-essential discomfort.
And the classic examples are things like cold showers and fasting.
Those are the famous ones, yes. But the practice encompasses anything that challenges the expectation of constant ease. Sleeping on the floor for a night, eating a very simple meal for a day, walking instead of driving.
The immediate reaction for most people is, why on earth would you willingly embrace pain?
And it's a fair question. The goal isn't self-punishment. It is building mental resilience, or what the sources call psychological fortitude, through controlled exposure.
The source material describes it as inoculating yourself against major life shocks.
That's the perfect metaphor. If you never experience any discomfort, even minor setbacks can feel catastrophic. A delayed flight ruins your day. A critical email sends you into a spiral.
But by willingly choosing minor temporary difficulty,
You prove to yourself, on a deep level, that your happiness is independent of external comfort. You learn that you can endure.
But this moves beyond just building toughness, though, right? There is a deep psychological technique at play here that's far more sophisticated than just taking a cold shower.
Absolutely. The highest form of this practice is often referred to as negative visualization,
Or in Latin.
premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils.
And what does that entail?
This is the practice of deliberately contemplating in vivid detail the loss of everything you value. Your health, your home, your relationships, your job.
That sounds extremely depressing. Why would a philosophy dedicated to tranquility recommend such a dark practice?
Because the pain of loss comes not from the event itself, but from the shock and the fear of losing what we take for granted. We're surprised by misfortune.
So by voluntarily imagining the loss, what happens?
Two powerful things happen. First, it neutralizes the fear of the unknown. You realize you could, in fact, survive the shock, thereby building immense psychological fortitude.
And the second thing?
The second, and perhaps most importantly, is that when you return to your reality, you gain profound gratitude for what you currently possess.
Your current state, the warm bed, the running water, the job, is transformed.
It's transformed from a baseline expectation into a temporary, magnificent gift.
It's a practical way to reset one's emotional baseline and to short-circuit the hedonic treadmill.
By fostering radical gratitude for simply enough.
If you're grateful for the simple fact that you have a roof over your head,
Your happiness is no longer dictated by chasing the next, larger, more difficult to obtain achievement. You stop running on the treadmill.
that appreciation is so strongly linked to the ultimate philosophical insight that underpins this whole practice.
Recognizing the ephemeral nature of things.
Yes. Ephemeral, meaning temporary, lasting for a very short time.
The Stoics insist on recognizing the ephemeral nature of all things. And if we connect this back to the policy debate for a moment, even the greatest economic prosperity or the most terrifying climate collapse, it is all temporary on a grand cosmic scale.
Why is this recognition so important for achieving tranquility?
Because it prevents enslavement.
Enslavement to what?
To your circumstances. If you recognize that a period of intense comfort is temporary, you don't desperately try to cling to it, which is what causes suffering when it inevitably passes.
And on the flip side,
If you recognize that a period of discomfort or struggle is also temporary, you don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed by despair.
you appreciate the present moment as just a fleeting occurrence.
And that prevents you from becoming, as the sources say, enslaved to either state. This recognition is the true gateway to tranquility, allowing you to move through life's inevitable ups and downs with a sense of stability and grace.
That's a powerful reframing, and it summarized the philosophy perfectly. Stoicism is less a philosophy of grim-faced endurance and more a practical framework for achieving tranquility.
Exactly. It's not about being tough for the sake of being tough. It's about being free.
Free from your own emotional reactions.
It's a framework that provides a new lens through which to view the everyday challenges of life.
And it shifts the focus from victimhood, that why is this happening to me mindset.
To a mindset of agency. How will I choose to respond to this, knowing I can only control my effort and my judgment?
It sounds less like some abstract, dusty philosophy and more like essential life maintenance.
That's a great way to put it. It gives you the necessary internal tools to navigate the very real external chaos and systemic failures we dissected in the first half of this deep dive.
So we have journeyed from the vast global policy scale, where we debated the systemic failure of governments and the urgency of the climate crisis,
All the way to a deep analytical reflection on the ancient wisdom of Stoicism, a philosophy for navigating that very chaos.
And the two topics, though they seem so disparate,
External macro crisis versus internal micromanagement.
they share a profound commonality. They both deal with managing an overwhelming reality.
And in both policy and philosophy, the key takeaway is really a pursuit of freedom.
Explain that. In the policy arena, the freedom is from external existential threat.
Right. Achieved either by massive systemic action or by building resilient, politically stable grassroots change.
It's a collective freedom we're striving for.
And in philosophy, the freedom is intensely personal. It's freedom from being enslaved by your emotions or by the endless striving of the hedonic treadmill.
It's the internal freedom that you need to maintain your sanity while you're engaging with the scale of the external crisis.
You need both.
We have distilled the complex arguments. We've defined the vivid metaphors like the sticking plaster on a hemorrhaging artery. We've analyzed the rhetoric of regret.
And hopefully provided you with the C2 level vocabulary and critical frameworks you need to articulate sophisticated ideas in either of these arenas.
The goal is for you to be equipped not just to participate in the conversation, but to elevate it by recognizing the why behind the words.
But before we conclude, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, one that genuinely ties these two vital subjects together.
Okay. The climate crisis, as articulated by the urgency argument, demands massive coordinated government intervention now.
That action must be external, collective, and immediate. It asks you to act for the system.
Conversely, Stoicism teaches you, through the dichotomy of control, to focus solely on what is within your control.
Your thoughts, your judgments, your character. It is an intensely personal and internal commitment.
It asks you to act for yourself, to master your inner world.
So here is the question.
If the external crisis demands immediate collective sacrifice and radical change, and your internal philosophy demands you focus only on your personal effort and response, how do you reconcile those two things?
How do you reconcile the urgency of the external collective crisis with the philosophy of internal individual focus?
Which one takes precedence when you only have so much energy?
Or are they two necessary sides of the same commitment to a meaningful life in a perilous world?
That is the complex, critical question we want to leave with you. Your commitment to engaging with complex ideas like these is what drives true understanding and ultimately informed action.
Keep speaking, keep reflecting, and keep applying this knowledge.
Thank you for joining us for this intensive deep dive.
We hope you feel empowered to engage these important debates with precision and with purpose.